Hey there, everyone. Kevin Creighton with Shooting Illustrated. On this episode of Shooting Illustrated Interviews, we're talking with Julie Golob. Now, Julie is a competition shooter. She's a mom. She's a great advocate for the Second Amendment. She's got a great book out there called Shoot, which was a terrific book. She works with gun safety programs, and she's also a sponsored shooter for Smith and Wesson. So we're going to be talking a little bit about all of those things, and just the changing nature and the changing reality of gun ownership in America. And I'm looking forward to it. She's always really fun to talk to. So first of all, Julie, thank you. Thank you for spending some time with me. I appreciate that.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm excited to chat with you.
Yeah,
It's been a while.
yeah, it has. Julie is one of those persons where you really have to work to get onto her bad side. You really do. She's just always so much fun to be around. Now, you're a competitive shooter. Well,
Yes,
sort of. Not right now, however.
not
You took
sure.
some time off, right?
I did take a little time off, yes.
Yeah, and why was that? You had a shoulder, right?
Yeah, I had rotator cuff surgery, open shoulder surgery, and arthroscopic, the whole 9 yards, and it set me
Wow.
back a little bit.
But now
But that's okay.
your background in this, you started off at an early age with this stuff, correct?
Yes, yes. I started shooting when I was 14 in upstate New York when I was with my dad, and we shot USPSA and hung out on all the ranges and all that. So it's been a long career of enjoying a good shoulder, but this
Right.
one's going to be even better.
And you're a veteran.
Yes.
And now you had an interesting job when you were in the army. What was that job?
Very, very, it was an amazing opportunity. I was recruited to shoot for the U.S. Army Marksmanship Unit and the Army shooting team, specifically the action shooting team down in Fort Benning, Georgia. Was recruited right from the nationals. I went to my first national championship as a junior in high school, and that kind of set the stage for a wonderful, gosh, blessed career in this industry and in the shooting sports.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of Shane came out of that. Shane Nolan, I can never remember his last name. Mike
Colby,
C.
yep.
Yeah, Mike
Max
Sequent,
Michelle,
Max
yep.
Michelle. There are a lot of top level shooters that came out of the Army marksmanship program. And for a lot of people who are interested in getting, in the competitive sports, they don't know that this program exists, but it does.
It does.
And you get paid to shoot. I mean,
You don't get paid a
uh,
lot.
yeah, but
You're
you,
still an army soldier, but
you get
it's
free ammo, which is always the greatest thing in the world, as far as I'm concerned.
absolutely
Yeah.
travel
So
and 100% dedication. That's the thing. It's an
yeah,
amazing.
and then after that, you now worked with Team Smith and Wesson.
Yes.
Yeah, and got a lot of stuff. And we'll talk about some of the stuff that they're coming out with, because they're coming out with some really cool guns. I got to admit, those that new 5.7 and the new 22 are just
I
amazing guns. I
know.
really like them.
Yeah.
That we did a video on the 5.7, and so far it's been our most popular video for the year. It's really took off. People are really interested in that gun. Yeah. Um, so what do we want to talk about more today, though, is just the changing nature of the shooting sports. We tend to think of this of guns as an old boys club, but we're seeing now a lot of programs specifically for women. A lot of
Mhm.
women getting involved in the shooting sports, both in the competitive side and in the self-defense side. And I think that's absolutely terrific, because they probably benefit more than somebody like me can. That old phrase, "God made man, Colonel Colt made him equal." Well, that applies to women as well. You know,
Yeah.
what are you seeing on this?
You know, starting out as a young girl in the shooting sports in the 90s and seeing where we've come to today with so many programs and opportunities for women to either compete or just get training. It's just the training side of thing alone. You see women instructors, you see courses and specific training opportunities designed specifically for women, but then you still see women showing up to regular, what you would think of extreme tactical classes
Sure.
and enjoying themselves. And I think that a lot of it is due to the fact that over time, the industry and the firearms community has been able to welcome so many different people from so many different walks of life and say, hey, this is truly for you. It's for everyone, and we
Right.
want you here. And it's really a wonderful thing to see.
It really is. I'm 100% in favor. I love teaching women on the range, because all us guys, we are born knowing how to do three things. That's
Right.
change oil in our car, hook up a stereo, and shoot. We all know how to do that,
Right.
when you get a woman on the range, she'll understand that there isn't that same kind of that there's that knowledge gap. She knows that she doesn't know things. Why somebody, I get guys in the range, oh yeah, I know how to shoot. Well, said you fired 10 rounds and none of them hit paper. So I'm gonna say no, you
Right.
don't. And that's a hard thing to tell a guy. Um, what specific, and then you've also got a book out called Shoot.
Yep.
What was your inspiration for that? And what is that book about?
So Shoot is basically a guide to how to get started in competition shooting. I wrote it several years ago now, 2010, I believe.
Yep.
And it's just a primer on how to get started because that was the most common question I was answering back then was how do I get here? We didn't have the Instagrams and the Facebooks and YouTube in the same way that we do now. I mean, you just type in a search for USPSA Grandmaster, and you're going to find so many people out there. It's so
That's
popular.
true. Yeah.
But the book really kind of opened the doors for a lot of people to figure out which discipline would suit them, what they're interested in, and how to have a strong foundation in the skills that you'll need to get started before you just go take the plunge.
There's the big, well, let's say the big four. There's multi-gun, rifle, pistol, shotgun. There's USPSA, there's
Mhm.
IDPA, and there's Steel Challenge. More or less is the big, there's other, outlaw stuff and like that. But, what in your opinion, like if somebody walks up to you and says, Julie, I love the book. What should I start shooting? How should I do it?
Honestly, the best place to start, I believe, is Steel Challenge. And the reason being is there's only one stage with any sort of movement. If you start out with a 22, which is a great firearm to begin with because it's inexpensive, it has low recoil, and you can shoot a lot. There are divisions for that that don't require you to have a holster. You can just get out there
Right.
and start shooting some steel, and it's so addictive.
It
I
is.
feel like it's such a great entry level sport. And of course, at the high end level, I mean, gosh, we in our local area in Kansas City, we have young girls that are world champions. They're rimfire world champions. I can't even keep up with them. They're at this extreme level of skill and speed. It's amazing to see how far that sport in particular has come and how welcoming it is for everybody,
It
families.
really, yeah, it really is. My local Steel Challenge match, for your first time, you don't draw from a holster.
Yep.
Just because, for number one, we don't know. Number two, there's some holsters out there that aren't necessarily the best for this sort of thing.
All right.
Um, being charitable here. And number three, you've got enough to worry about as it is. You
Yes.
know, I like Steel Challenge for beginners as well because it narrows everything down to grip, stance, sights, trigger, transitions.
Yes.
That's it. And then you can worry about the movement and the tactical reloads and all the rest of that in a later time. But you get those fundamentals down by doing Steel Challenge. And you're right, with 100% right. With the 22, you're sending, pennies down range.
Right.
You
And
know,
you get to throw your worst run away on each stage. I mean,
right?
talk
Yeah,
about like you're so nervous for the first one and it goes bad, then that one doesn't count. It's great,
yeah.
right?
It's a mulligan. Yeah, it's a
Yes.
duo. It's like, okay, well, yeah, well, that's fine. You get to do it over. It really is. Everybody used to shoot Steel Challenge. Like, this was so much fun. It really is just, you get to a certain point in this business, and you start to concentrate on, well, I need to go to the range and I need to take 0.005 off my split time and work on my trend. That you're like that. I know you're like that because you're a championship shooter, and I can occasionally be like that. But for the fact of the matter is, for most people, for 95% of the people out there in America, you go to the range to have fun. It's a
Yes.
social event.
Yes.
And Steel Challenge in any shooting sport is really a social event. You get a good time, you get to talk to each other, and you get to. We just interviewed Rob Latham, and Rob has been known to trash talk at a match every once in a
No.
while. But no, you just have a good
No.
time. It's so much fun to do this with people like that. Yeah. If you've not done a competition shoot, if you've not, if you're even kind of sort of mildly involved in this, just go to a match, see what happens. You are going to have a lot of fun. And if you're really interested more in the tactical area, in the defensive area, that's also a good thing to do. And I know you work with Phil, our friends John and Sarah. It's at Filster Holsters, and they're definitely
Yeah.
more on the defensive side of things, and that's important to you as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So the defensive, combining the two, the competition and the defensive, that's something that just goes like peanut butter and jelly, right?
It does. I feel like, for the longest time, there was this great dichotomy between the two that you couldn't be one or the other. It was, oh, well, you're a competition shooter, you're not very serious. But what we're seeing now is more and more people who are interested in learning how to shoot go to competition. And I tell people all the time, your gun handling skills that you're going to pick up, the safety ingrained in your brain every time you shoot a match is going to transfer over to life, wherever it may be, whether it's defending your home or concealed carry. It's a huge thing. I never have to worry about how to hold my pistol, right? I never have to think about how to line up the sights, and the learning curve that you get out of competition, it just takes things so much faster. It keeps you motivated and excited, and again, as you said, the people are great too. So it's really a great opportunity to test your skills. And it's important to understand there are significant differences between a game
Sure.
and real life, but
Yeah.
as long as you understand that and realize what you're getting out of it, it's hugely beneficial.
One of the biggest benefits, and this was brought up by a friend of mine, the list of indoor ranges where you can go to, and they'll let you draw from a holster is really short. So
Yes.
most people, when they start their concealed carry journey, the biggest thing they need to learn how to do is just carry their guns with them on a regular basis. It's not natural to carry a pound and a half, 2 pounds of plastic, metal, and lead around with you.
Right.
It took us. I mean, when you and I, we both remember when smartphones first started happening, right?
Yes.
How often did you leave the house without your phone? Quite often.
Quite
Now I'd be like, I'd leave my house without my pants before I left without my phone. It's just,
Right.
it's
It's
just become that natural part of us. And that's the way it needs to be with concealed carry. And what going to a match and shooting a match does is it gets you comfortable to having that weight on your hip. You're walking around for half a day with a gun on your hip. You're like, oh, okay, so that's what it feels like.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
really an unrecognized benefit of going to a match. And part of the issues we quite frankly have with this whole process of competition and concealed carry is that familiarity with your guns. And we have a lot of guns, I think, that we out there for concealed carry that really came filtered down from the law enforcement slash military side of things. Like, let's face it, the first Glock was, became part of a military contract and
Right.
police contracts and stuff like that. And we've always had this idea that, well, if it's good for the military, it's got to be good for me. But one thing we're seeing now, we're talking about the diverse nature of this, is a diverse type of amount of guns that are coming out now. The guns that are
Yes.
specifically designed for concealed carry and specifically designed for people who normally wouldn't be able to carry concealed. And Smith and Wesson's really led the charge on this. That's one thing I really like about your stuff.
Yeah, no, it's been a neat thing to watch the company evolve. For a while, everybody was like, let's make a 9 millimeter polymer frame gun. And now we're seeing tweaks to that pistol platform and in other calibers as well, so that you have capacity and you have lightweight. You have so many features that you want out of a pistol that you're going to use for defense. But now you have so many more options to choose from based on what your capabilities are, which I think is great.
Yeah, it really is. I live in Florida. I worked in a gun store, and we'd have people come in and say, okay, we need a pistol for self-defense. So we take them over to, a compact 9 millimeter pistol, fill in the blank, and they
Yep.
just didn't have the strength to rack that slide to,
Yes.
to activate the gun. Even if you do like a push pull and have them turn that way, it just wasn't happening. So okay, fine, great. All right, let's walk over here to the real revolver market. And even your best double action revolver, you're going to still looking at probably close to an 8, 9, 10 pound trigger pull.
Sure.
Not a thing. And then they walk out with something that's kind of less optimal, less than optimal, and you go, okay, well, at least I made a sale. You don't
Yeah.
really like to think about they have a gun, but it's not the right gun for them. With
Right.
Smith and Wesson, though, one thing I like about you guys is when you came out with that Shield EZ series, that was a wake up call to the industry.
Yeah. It
You
was
know,
crazy. I remember the first writers event that we had up at the Smith& and Wesson Academy in Springfield, and all these, gun writers and knowledgeable influencers and everything else are looking at this easy going, "What are you thinking? This is
why do I
not
want this? I don't know.
do
I don't know.
anything.
Yeah,
Why would
yeah.
I want this?" And then they shot it and they're like, "Whoa, this gun is great. It doesn't have a lot of recoil." And at the time, it came out with 380 first and then 9 millimeter. But I wish we had a camera on every person's face just to see that reaction. And then with the evolution of this process, we now have the equalizer, which takes that easy, gives it more capacity. It has a lot of the same great features, easy to rack capability, but now we have levels of this pistol for people that want it. We have, performance center versions with the blingy looking triggers and stuff like that, that if that's what you want, that's what you get, versus something like the equalizer, which is gaining in huge popularity in the tactical world because it's functional, it's a great size, it shoots great, and it has all of the attributes that people are looking for: red dot capability, all of that, rails. It's good. It's
Yeah,
neat to see.
yeah. It's definitely, and one thing I thought also that Smith and Wesson is doing is right now is they're kind of they're branching out into, how shall we put this, non-traditional calibers. Stuff that you
Yes.
don't normally see. So when they came out with the 5.7, my editor and myself went to the Smith and Wesson event at SHOT Show, and we're like, okay, let's do it. And then they showed us their new product. Went, you've got a winner. We just looked at it and said, this was one of the most
Yes.
fun guns I've ever shot in my entire life. We're talking about the new Smith& Wesson 5.7 easy, and it shoots 5.7 by 28. Now 5.7 by 28 guns, I'd like compare them to, your little Yorkshire Terriers, those little poodle that like, and they're just so much fun. They'll go forever, and there's just so much energy and involvement in them. But they punch above their weight class. And it's
Yes.
the new 5.7 and the new one, I think, are two really interesting guns. Let's talk about that just a little bit here.
Absolutely. Like, I would, if you had asked me 10 years ago if we would ever come out with a 5.7 or a 22
Yeah,
Magnum, I'd be like, no way. No. We might make some sort of revolver, one-off kind of deal at some
right.
point with different calibers, but nothing in the M&P line for sure. But our engineers were just like, hey, this would be a really cool gun to make. Let's make it well and give it a lot of wonderful features that people are asking for, and put it in a platform that is, you've got significant magazine capacity, 30 plus one
Yeah,
rounds of the 22 Magnum. And now you have these two pistols that people have options, whether they want it for defense or if they want to have a field gun. So many people out there, need to take care of varmints and also have fun.
yeah,
So it's a great solution for that. I
yeah.
love mine. I'd never shot a 5.7 before, and I was like, this gun is amazing.
They're so
It's
much
so
fun.
much fun. It
It's
is.
really designed from the ground up to be easy to use because it uses a different kind of recoil system, action system, where you don't
Yes.
have a very heavy slide to rack back. You've got the dot ready right from the get go. Then and you bring an interesting point there, that field gun or kit gun.
Yep.
The gun that you bring with you when you're going out in the woods that isn't your long gun. People forget that
Right.
that's a thing that needs to happen.
Yeah.
Whether it's just you're talking varmints or you're out on a hunt and it's like, well, I think I can hit that can from there. What do you think? Just that sort of fun. It's that whole fun thing again that people
Yeah.
forget is so important. People will do stuff for fun. People. It's a lot easier to get people to eat candy than it is to get them to eat broccoli. You know.
True.
So, and the 5.7 and the M&P 22 are definitely part of that. Whole fun line. So it's definitely like that. So what's up? What's next for you? What do you got coming down the pipe here?
So I've, as you mentioned earlier, I've taken a little bit of break in competition, but I'm ready to hit the circuit again. So I have the last half of the year. I'll be shooting my first competition in about 3 weeks.
Yay!
So wish me luck. It's gonna be ugly, but it'll be good. It'll be good to get back.
Come on. You at your ugliest is going to be me at my best. You better beats me at my best. Let's just face that. We put a production gun in a production gun in your hands and an open gun in my hand. You're going to win. Let's just face facts.
Well,
You know,
not a
that's
couple of
just the way
months
it
ago,
goes.
that's for
Okay,
sure.
that's probably true. but you've got this process that you're going through right now where you have to get ready for it, where in some ways you're kind of starting from zero on a lot of this because a lot of the nerve myelination you've had built in needs to be built up again. So for somebody just starting at this, we want to get not necessarily competition or the tactical world, but just training in general. That's one of the biggest problems we have in this is get people buy a lot of guns and they think that they're done. So I've got this
Right,
thing underneath my bed that's going to keep me safe.
right.
And that's just not the way it goes. You need to be able to use it and use it in a stressful situation in order for it to be effective. What sort of things are you going to be doing? And you think how would that apply to like your average gun owner out there to help them get, into the swing of things and get more confident and up to speed?
Sure. Everything that you have in life teaches you something, I believe. And so, being back to square one with taking so much time off, not being able to use the arm, being very limited in being able to what to do with my hands, it's given me a really good perspective and a little bit more empathy towards people that, I was always one of
That
those
suck.
people. No, 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 no. But I was always one of those people who like, oh, anybody can rack a slide. Like it's just a technique issue. Well, I couldn't rack the slide on anything for the longest time. And so it made me think about how I teach and what I needed to do. And also the mindset for getting back into competition is has been different. It's frustrating, but at the same time, I'm trying to look at it as an opportunity to erase all of the things that may have kept me back. So it's a great place to start fresh because it's completely fresh for me in a lot of ways. I have to build back the muscles, and everything feels a little different. And it's really it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm hopeful. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be right back on track, and within a year, I'll be busting X rings and doing everything that I need to do. But it might not happen at the pace that I want, and I have to give myself a little bit of grace for that. But one of the things that I really had to work on and change was learning how to draw with just a weak hand and using everything with one hand. And so my friends at Philster hooked me up with a left-handed Enigma. I still
Wow.
wanted to do the things. I still wanted to carry. I still wanted to make sure that I could defend the things that I love. But I had to tackle it in a different way. That was very
Sure.
eye-opening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I can
yeah.
imagine, and one of the great things about, you mentioned competition, getting back into it in the competition world, it really, of all the really professional sports, and obviously, shooting isn't on the same level as like, basketball or, anything like that. But
Right.
one of the things we see in the competition world, if you're thinking about getting into it and you're a woman, it is the differences in between men and women competing in the sport are a lot smaller than most other sports. It really, if you're looking to make an impact and if you're a woman and you want to get into this, get into it
Yeah.
because you're going to find that you'll be able to run with the big boys, if you
It's
put the time in and do it.
Yes. I mean, we have, I could rattle off so many different names of champion shooters out there who are really pushing the envelope in speed and accuracy. And when you have sports like the Steel Challenge, for example, and you don't have to climb a wall, or it's not a super physical match where you got to drag a dummy or something of that nature, that gap is shrinking even more. And as I mentioned, we have junior girls winning rimfire world
Right.
championships, not ladies titles, but outright winning. And
Beating the
it's
men, beating the
beating the
whole
men. Yep,
field.
absolutely. And so it's really neat to see. Now, it is hard work.
Yeah,
These women are really working at it, and they're completely dedicated to their performance and making all those little adjustments to get everything that they need out of it. But even if you're not looking to win the nationals overall, you can still be on the level playing field in the same way. You can
sure.
still be a B or C class shooter in USPSA and win your class and be successful just like any man can. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. My local Steel Challenge group, there's one guy, the top rimfire rifle shooter in my group is a woman. And there's one guy that just can't handle that. It's like, I gotta You're at the, it's so funny, in a nice way, obviously, but
Of
it's so
course,
much fun to watch. It's kind of like, and then we get right back down to it. It's fun.
it is.
I think anything we can do, especially in these times, to get people out to the range and have fun with the firearm in their hand and do it safely and just, a friend of mine, once, said, once we get people out to the range, we win.
Yes.
And that's just the nature of the beast, and to have them push themselves and do a little bit and succeed and goal and get at their goals and have all that and hang out with their friends and just do fun stuff. Yeah, more.
Fun is the best motivator.
Yeah,
There are only a certain number of people out there who have what it takes to put in the work to become a national champion. And at the end of the day, that's a tiny, tiny number in the shooting sports.
yeah,
And so you have tens of thousands and thousands of people who are enjoying this and getting what they want out of it because they're enjoying themselves. Just as you said, it's a really unique place to be in a lot of ways because think about it. I mean, what other things can you do as a 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 and up something that allows you to create a camaraderie in a team environment but still get an individual benefit from it,
right,
right? You can go
right.
play pickleball, you can go do a lot of these other things, and maybe you'll score a goal one day, but you get to measure your results in the shooting sports individually and then be a part of your squad, your match, your team,
Yeah,
your local club. That's really, I mean, I can't think of many other things that are like that. Maybe bowling leagues,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, golf maybe, and it's like, I tell people, shooting a match is like golf, only louder.
yes,
It really is. If you like
yes,
shooting golf, you'll love shooting competitions, So yeah,
yes,
stuff like that. Julie, you can find you at juliegolob.com, correct? And then
correct.
also you do stuff for Smith and Wesson, for Filster holsters, Federal Premium, other people, and these are all brands,
Yep.
I'm going to the range after this, and I'm shooting Federal Premium, and I'm drawing from a Filster holster. So yeah, this is good stuff that she talks about and she recommends. Check her out. She's one of the best things in the shooting sports. I really appreciate your time here. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Hey, and be sure to check in by shootingillustrated.com for more of these interviews. And thanks for watching.